You are listening to episode 13 of the Beyond Unreal podcast. I am the White Dragon.
And this is Sir Briz.
And this stuff's getting out of control.
Yeah, things have gone a little crazy this week.
So, some of you might know we have had a playtesting system set up in our IRC channel. Now, I want to start out first by saying that we cannot take credit for any of that. Raxi, who is a user that's been visiting our IRC channel, he created the build system, he set up servers, he did absolutely all of the work. We're just lucky that he chose to host it in our channel.
Yeah. At the beginning, we were all kind of helping each other figure out how to build things, and one thing that all of us kind of wanted to get working was building a Linux binary and figuring out how dedicated servers worked and all of that. So we were all kind of sharing ideas about how to do various things, and once we got to a point where we understood a whole bunch of things about it, then Raxi kind of just took over and came up with this flat-out amazing system of having bots in the channel and having commands where you could run a build and get it uploaded and everybody could download it. And it was just crazy how fast it took off from that point.
So what happened this week? Well, information about our build system got out. We were just using it for playtesting people in the community, but it got posted on NeoGAF. People saw it on NeoGAF and posted it on Rock Paper Shotgun, and then it was on PCGamer.com, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Obviously, we always knew that that was going to happen. I think the thing that shocked me that I didn't expect was for the journalists to be just so freaking irresponsible about the whole thing. There was a lot of misinformation. For instance, people said that it was a Epic developer that did it. No, it was not. It was Raxi. It was a community thing. He did it completely on his own. A lot of people said this is the first time that this has been available. No, we've been playing it for 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, nobody really stressed the point that this was for playtesting, that it's a pre-alpha, in no way representative of the final game.
Yeah, it was very typical, I think, for the journalism sites, how they will jump on something and not really look into it and see what's going on before they decide to post news on it.
Unfortunately, on Thursday, Epic came in and told us that we had to shut it down.
Yep.
So way to go, guys. This is why we can't have nice things. We still have some servers up, but we are not distributing the package.
Yep.
So if you want to play test, get an Unreal Engine subscription.
Yep.
And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are going to say, I'm not a programmer. You know, why should I get an Unreal Engine subscription? You don't have to be a programmer. They have made this thing so ridiculously easy to modify. It reminds me a lot of the StarCraft editor. You can literally just open things up and start changing numbers and seeing how they affect things.
Yep.
It's totally worth the $20 a month. If you're interested in this game, there's no excuse not to get a subscription.
Raxi has also posted on the Unreal Tournament forum in his non-Epic Playtest Feedback Thread the steps that you need to go through basically to get to playing on his servers with the subscription version. Basically, you just have to be on the same version of the game as his servers are running it. He is planning on, at some point, being able to update some of the servers to the latest build so that people that are always on the latest can go in and play on those. But for right now, if you go and follow his instructions, which are pretty clear, then you can jump into his servers and start playing right now. But that is the best way to get into the game. If you want to try it out and start giving playtesting feedback, just go subscribe to the engine. It's on unrealengine.com. $20 pays for 30 days, and you can go in and you can even do more than just play. You can mess around with the movement settings and all sorts of stuff. That's where all these videos on the forums have been coming from.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't blame Epic. I mean, we always kind of knew that it was possibly in a gray area, but whenever we asked Epic about it, they were like, well, what build system? We don't know what you're talking about.
They would kind of just turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah, they were just turning a blind eye to it. But I think that when it got big, I don't know if legal came in and said, hey, guys, this isn't okay, or what happened. But I totally understand their decision to do so. And it also appears to me that they're making a lot of changes based on what happened. Yeah. So as soon as they came into IRC and told us to shut it down, you saw a huge flurry of commits geared towards making the game more presentable to the wider public.
Yeah.
So, for instance, you have to accept the EULA before you can play.
Yeah.
They added passworded servers, a lot of things that will really be necessary for a public alpha type of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're actually going to distribute something or what the deal is, but there's definitely some movement coming off of this, and we really don't know what.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, too, because the builds that we had been providing were just flat out the game. When you launched the game, you went straight into a map. And there was no accepting the EULA to play. There was no about screen with
no menu.
They've added an about screen with a bunch of copyright information. There was none of that going on in there, and so I'm sure that they have kind of a responsibility to provide that information, and so that may have been what led to them saying let's shut this down. But it does seem like they're doing something. We don't really know exactly what yet, but those are the commits that have gone in.
Let's go into the commits. So there's lots of stuff. Let's start out with, there was a couple of mechanics that we showed in our podcast last week, but we did not have time in the podcast to talk about, and that is the jump roll. Specifically.
Yeah.
Tell me about jump roll.
So jump roll is an extension on the dodge roll. Basically, when you're jumping, you can also tap the crouch button and you'll roll at the end of the move. But something that's interesting that they added this week is that you can tap the jump button again before you hit the ground and you'll start rolling. The problem with this is something that I've noticed while we've been playtesting. Everybody seems to be jump rolling all over the place because they're used to double jumping all over the place in the game, and they just double tap the jump, and it seems like any time during your jump that you hit the jump button, you activate the roll at the end. One of the big problems with that right now is that since the maneuver slows you down, it makes it a lot easier for somebody to just run up to you and shoot you while you're rolling on the ground. Yeah. And since everybody seems to be doing it frequently because they're used to double jumping, it just seems like there's a bit of a problem going on there.
Yeah, so I think it's important to know this is happening. I do not believe that players are doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny when there were people on the servers and I saw somebody dodge roll. It was like, ooh, free kill, because it's so easy to just walk up to them and blast them in the face with flak.
Yeah.
And there's some other strange things with this too. So for instance, if you use the jump boots, you'll always roll at the end.
Yeah. There's just some funkiness that's going on with the move right now. It has a lot to do with, I think, that the activation for it is a little strange. And there's not really great messaging on rolling what's going to cause it to happen.
Yeah, you crouch. I mean, your view goes down and you slide, but I don't think a lot of new players are even realizing what's happening because they wouldn't be rolling if they knew what was going on.
Yeah, and they do it so often that it just seems unnatural. One thing that I noticed earlier today, I was playing on a server with D-Pain, and I don't know if you guys know this guy, but he's one of the better UT players. I don't know if he's top or not, so if I offend you, I'm sorry, but I think you are doing really well against me. Earlier today, I was playing against him. There was another guy in the server too, and I kind of decided to just try to maneuver enough to stay alive for as long as I possibly could. And what I found was that the rolling didn't really save you from anything. In fact, I probably died more from projectiles and sniper fire both while I was rolling around on the ground than I did just by jumping and strafing and dodging.
Yep. Now there's some other things. We've talked a lot about the dodge roll, but there is also the jump roll. And one of the main reasons why they added the jump roll was they wanted to add a maneuver so that if you are falling from a great height, that you can avoid taking some damage by rolling before you hit the ground.
Yeah.
The problem with it is that it really doesn't deflect any damage. In fact, if you watched the podcast last week, you'll notice that it only saves you 6 points of health regardless of how high you fell. So it seems to me like that the math in there was wrong, but it really doesn't help. And the other thing, though, is that you can just jump from really high in this game.
Yeah, you can right now.
You can jump from the first sniper nest in base and live. And you definitely could not do that in UT99.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm pretty sure that you could jump from the Redeemer in UT99, and if it didn't kill you, you were at least almost dead, you know?
Yeah.
In this game, you can jump almost all the way off the tower and live.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. The fall damage seems like it still needs quite a bit of work right now.
Yes.
The problem with the way that the jump roll works right now is it's activated by space to try to save you from that.
You can activate it with crouch, and you can activate it with space.
Yeah, and activating it with space just seems to add a lot of wonkiness to other movement mechanics and stuff. And so if it's going to stay, I'd rather that it stayed on crouch. It is a crouching movement. It's lowering you down to the ground. But I posted this on the forums earlier today. I'm still just struggling to find a reason to keep the mechanic around because I find it so useless. But I mean, if they want to have other movement things in there for people to mess around with, I guess that's fine. I just think that this is one where when people find out about it, they'll think it's cool and use it. But as soon as they get good at the game, they'll say, I'm not going to do that anymore because it causes too many problems.
At first, I was okay with dodge roll because after they changed it, because it was like, well, maybe it doesn't really do anything, but it's flavor, and that's cool, right?
Yeah.
It's cool to every once in a while roll, and it kind of will throw people off because they're not used to seeing it or something like that.
Yeah.
The problem is that roll actually provides a significant disadvantage to you without really any benefit back in return. And so the mechanic is actually harmful to new players or really anybody that doesn't understand that it's a bad idea to use.
Yeah.
And if something provides that big of a disadvantage without any advantages, I really think that it's best to remove it. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't balance it further, although I'm not quite sure how they would do that without making it a momentum maintaining mechanic.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the wall slide. Wall slide is if you are next to a wall at the apex of your jump, you will slide along the wall. And it will give you a little bit extra hang time. Now, they've changed it a couple of times since then so that you have to actively be pushing into the wall to make it happen, and they've made a couple of other changes. But when they first put it in, kind of made me mad because I was playing specifically with Cafe, I think is who I was playing with that day, and we were talking in TeamSpeak, and we both kept getting caught on the wall in the middle of combat, and you would die from it.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of Unreal Tournament 2003 when you'd get stuck on a static mesh. So infuriating.
Yeah. Just to be clear, the mechanic activates automatically when you're next to a wall.
Right.
And the way that it was when they first implemented it, it was basically if you're anywhere within wall dodge range of the wall and you jump, you're going to get stuck to the wall sliding. A lot of people complained about that, and I think we've complained about that on the forums, how it was just too easy to get stuck and it was causing a lot of problems.
And they've made a lot of changes.
Yeah. Primarily the change has been that you have to actually be pushing yourself into the wall in order to slide. But it's still automatic in that you don't push a key that activates wall sliding, or you just have to be intentionally pushing yourself into the wall. And the problem with it still right now is that it's actually not that hard to have some acceleration into the wall from a wall dodge or a impact hammer jump or any of those sorts of things, or getting shot with a rocket even, and just get glued to the wall. And it's just super frustrating when it activates when you don't want it to, and it still will do that. Now, on the forums, I said that the problem with these automatically engaging mechanics is that there's no good messaging for them. Without adding something to the HUD to say you're doing something that you don't know that you're doing, I think that the wall slide actually could be a good mechanic, but they need to figure out a way to either message it really well so that you always know when it's going to happen, or switch it to being activated manually with a key. I would personally advocate for the latter just because I think that your movement should be very intentional in an arena shooter, but I think that there's a possibility that they could improve it in a way that I don't expect.
It's kind of weird because it seems like Epic is going out of their way to make it so that this mechanic will work without an additional key press. It just seems like a lot of effort for something that would really just be better if it was just a key press. I don't think anybody would be opposed to it being a key press. I don't know. There were certainly a lot of people in that thread saying that they would like a key press.
Yeah.
As it exists today, it doesn't make me mad like it does before. In fact, I've actually found that it's a little too hard to activate sometimes.
Yeah.
And I've also found that it kind of will screw me up when I'm trying to do other moves like multiple wall dodges or multiple slope dodges. So even if they move it to a key press, there's probably going to be some extra work for it.
Yeah.
Making sure that it doesn't interfere with other mechanics, but also making sure that it's actually useful. I mean, right now it gives you a little bit of hang time, but there's not any place in any map that it allows you to get to that you couldn't get to already. In combat, because it slows you down a little bit, it doesn't really have a ton of utility in combat. Although it sure does make going around those curves and corners really nice.
Yeah.
So it definitely needs work. We advocated for some sort of wall running before, and so I'm glad that they stuck it in there. And of all of the moves that have been proposed, this is probably the most promising, most likely to make it into the game.
Yeah,
I just
agree.
don't like the current implementation at all.
Yeah.
So last podcast, we kind of talked about what were some of the things that we would most like to see changed. And both of those things got addressed this week. So the first one is the weapon projectile speeds.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the changes that they made to the weapon projectile speeds?
Yeah, so I played the game today with a couple of other people, and I actually think that it's pretty good. The rockets in particular are feeling pretty nice. They move at a good speed. They're not too fast to be undodgeable, but they're also not so slow that anybody could dodge them. The way that it was before, if you saw somebody fire a rocket, you could just easily walk out of the way of the rocket. Even dodging was obvious. You could get right out of the way. Now you have to actually plan your move a little bit better. I like it a lot more. There is still a problem with the flak secondary.
It's just too hard to hit with, man. Yeah.
And it shoots like straight down at the ground right now. There's not a good arc on it. And the other thing too is that just running in a straight line forward and shooting the secondary, you pretty much run into where it hits the ground. It moves slow, it doesn't have a good arc, and it's just so hard to use. And I would think that's my top one for weapon balance right now. That just needs to be fixed. It's just so bad.
Yep. I really liked what they did with the shock core. So one of the things that I saw a lot of, we said Fatality came in. Well, another prominent streamer, Chumbo, has come in, and he's actually contributed a lot of stuff. You should absolutely check out his channel.
Yep.
And one of the things that he was doing was shock coring all over the place.
Yeah.
So he would shoot 3 or 4 shock balls out there and then just wait for you to try and navigate through that minefield and then shoot whichever one you were closest to.
Yep.
And it was like, especially against new players, he was just hitting them every time. The thing that makes shock combos hard is that a moving shock combo is hard. So if you want to be sure that you're going to hit that combo, you probably better stay in one place or only move backwards and forwards. In UT99, there was a lot of shooting the ball and only walking backwards to make sure that you could hit it, because in online play it was really hard to hit.
Yep.
But the way that it was, you could literally do anything that you wanted, multi-wall dodge, boost dodge, or whatever, and you could still hit it.
Yeah.
And you could have 4 balls out at a time. Now you can really only have 2 balls out, and you really can't lay a minefield like you could before. It actually requires effort to hit moving combos, although you can still pull off some pretty crazy combos. It's not terribly difficult to do. But I think that balanced out the shock rifle a lot.
Yeah. One of the problems still, I think, with it is that you can shoot the very edge of the shock ball, and it'll still initiate a shock combo. And so there's actually quite a large area that you can hit with the shock primary to do that. That, I think, makes it a lot easier. So a lot of what you'll see right now, if you watch some gameplay videos, is people shooting 2 cores out at 2 different choke points, and they'll just shoot whichever one the person decides to go to, and it's really simple for them to just turn and shoot it because there's such a large collision area on it.
Yep. So then the other thing that we talked about last week that they modified was the weapon switch times.
Yep.
It was a small change. It's not fast weapon switch like I've been advocating. They've basically reduced the overall weapon switch times for most weapons by about 0.2 seconds.
Yep.
On some weapons, it's actually gone up because they've introduced weapon-specific weapon switch times.
Yep.
So the most promising thing to me in those changes was the fact that they made the weapon switch time for the translocator lower than all of the other weapons. And I really like that because my favorite thing about this game is translocating and then switching to a weapon and pulling off all sorts of fun tactics and mind games with translocator and multi-weapon mechanics.
Yep.
That being said, I'm personally not a fan of most of the way that it is right now.
Yeah.
So I'm not a huge fan of different switch times for different weapons.
Yep.
If I want to pull off a multiple weapon tactic, being able to shoot as soon as that weapon switch time is done is a critical skill. And when every weapon has a slightly different weapon switch time, and the time is going to be different depending on which weapons you're switching between, because remember there's a switch to and a switch away speed, you're never going to learn that timing.
Yeah, that's my problem with it as well right now. A few people in IRC brought this up too, that it's just impossible to learn the timings if the timings aren't static. What I mean by that is if switching to and from every weapon isn't the same, you can't learn how long it takes to put down and bring up a weapon. Now, the one weapon that I would disagree with that on is the translocator. I think that the switch time from the translocator should be shorter. That's my personal preference, and I only think that because I think that the longer that you make the weapon switch time on the translocator, the more worthless the weapon is for getting you into the middle of combat.
It really depends on where they go, right? If they go the direction that I want to, which is Unreal Tournament 2004 weapon switch times, then I really don't think that you want the translocator to have a different weapon switch time from anything else. I thought it worked really well in that game. The only weapons I would really increase the time for would be like the Redeemer and maybe possibly switching to the impact hammer so that you can't do the shield gun stuff that you could do in Unreal Tournament 2004. But if they're going to have long weapon switch times, then it does make sense to have the translocator be shorter.
Yeah, I would say that the shorter the average weapon switch speed is, the more the translocator should match up to that speed. I didn't mind it in 2K4 either. I think that that's kind of the range of weapon switch speed that I would prefer. Maybe it's because that's what I'm more used to. I don't know for sure. What I found is in UT3 with a slow weapon switch speed and in UT with a slow weapon switch speed for the translocator, that you tended to get yourself into an external position to combat and then work your way into a combat situation. In 2K4, it was common to just rush the flag with your translocator and just swipe the flag and try to sort out the situation with the enemy flag
carrier. Figure it out when you get there.
Yeah, like getting yourself into the middle of combat was not hard, and so there was a lot more strategy to switching back to the right weapon and figuring out how to get out of the situation or to get your flag back or whatever the case may be. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I'd drop into a situation like that, swipe the enemy's flag, kill the flag carrier, and turn the flag and get myself killed. But that was the goal, right? To drop in and get my flag back, whatever it took.
Yep.
And that's what I did. And that was something that was really fun for me with the translocator and the switch speeds in 2K4.
Yeah, so the thing that makes the weapon switch time such a difficult issue is that there are really great advantages to both sides.
Yeah.
So with the slow weapon switch time, you really did have to be methodical about how you were going to return the flag.
Yeah.
Because if you came in on the wrong approach, the cover were going to kill you every time.
Yeah.
Whereas in Unreal Tournament 2003, 2004, you could pretty much translocate right into the middle of the battle.
Yep.
And it made things a lot more intense. Go back and look at some of our previous podcasts and look at how many games were close or how many just absolutely insane situations there were where there was multiple players fighting over the flag. And it wasn't random. I mean, it took real skill to navigate those kinds of situations and make the right choice, because whether you decided to try and translocate directly onto the flag to return it or to shoot at the flag, and how you went about it made a big difference.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I liked about it was that it really separated half decent flag carriers from really good flag carriers, because really good flag carriers would just come in, and even though people were dropping in basically right next to them and shooting them, they were able to navigate that and survive. To me, that added a lot more strategy to keep the flag in play.
There's advantages to both sides. I think that they should try the fast weapon switch and see how it works. There is a lot of support for it. Fast weapon switch speed was Unreal Tournament 2003's greatest contribution to arena shooters.
Yep.
All of the arena shooters after that used faster weapon switch times.
Yep.
You look at CPMA use instant weapon switch time. Quake Live uses it now. People even went and added a fast weapon switch into UT99, and the competitive community used it.
Yep.
So I definitely think that it's something that we should try out. So let's talk about the map that they added in closing. So they added a new map, and it looks really cool.
It is really cool. I played on it earlier today, Deathmatch, and it was really nice. The thing that's interesting is Clawfist came onto the forums, and he basically said, hey, it would be great if some of you guys could organize a 4v4 TDM match on Spacer and then give me some feedback on it. And of course, Chumbo comes in and one-ups him and provides full video of 2 organized 4v4 matches on Spacer, along with all the feedback that came with it. And that's the kind of thing that is going to make this game awesome. I'm convinced. The stuff like that where Epic can get direct feedback from the community, direct feedback from the people that are going to play this game, is going to turn this Unreal Tournament into the best Unreal Tournament we've seen.
Yep. On the team deathmatch thing, something that I would like to see more of from these maps, something that we saw a little bit of in Unreal Tournament 2004, but we lost a little bit of in UT3, was maps that had clear sides to them. So this goes back to TAM, right? In TAM, the teams would start out, everybody would spawn at the same time, and you would spawn on opposite ends of the map. A lot of the maps that have been put into the game so far would not be good for TAM, because their layouts are just so random all over the place that there's not really any area that you can sit down and say, okay, we as a team can stay in this area and defend and protect this area.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because Team Deathmatch plays out a little bit like Domination does, because it's more about map control and controlling specific areas. One of the pieces of feedback that they gave Clawfist was that the shield belt area in Spacer was really well defined, and it was easy for them to come in and defend it and have positioning there. And that's the kind of thing that they need to have on a lot of these TDM designed maps, is areas where a team can come in and control some kind of resource. So they could come in and control the shield belt, or come in and control the armor or the U damage, or these various pickups in the map. I would agree that in several of the maps that they have in the game right now, that's a real challenge, like CO4 especially. This is an older map in the game. It is cramped, and there's no way you could control the pickups. They're tucked back into corners. They're in wide open spaces where you couldn't really have a defensible position. And I think that some of the other maps have that exact same problem.
Yep. That type of dynamic is part of what helps players memorize the maps.
Yeah.
So CO4, I think, is a really great example. Nobody knows where the hell they're going in that map. It's just so convoluted, and the problem is each room is kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
But I don't walk into a room and say, okay, this room is important because it connects into this room through these paths.
Yeah.
I would never sit down and say, okay, I like to go to this area because I know that I can use this area as a point of attack for doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in CO4. A lot of players I've noticed haven't really memorized the maps
Yeah.
because of that. So we want to talk a little bit about the podcast in general and perhaps some ways that the community can get more involved. The one thing that you have to realize is that we do record this in person. And so that kind of makes it difficult to bring other people in and maintain the quality of the podcast if we're doing it over the internet. And also we have a format that really works on a weekly format. But I do want more community members involved in the channel. And so my call out to the people out there that want to get involved is you could have your own video show on our channel if you would like. If you can come to us with a good idea, show that you can be consistent with it. And so if there's something that maybe our weekly update doesn't do that you think we should have on the channel and you would like to do it, we would be happy to try and help you do that. I would even be willing to help you edit some of the video, definitely promote it, things like that.
And I think the other thing, too, is that we are looking at talking to community members about various topics and either including snippets of those into our show or having additional shows where we have Q&As with various prominent community members, or, you know, we would even be happy to do that with Epic developers and have more content for you guys to check out. But we also kind of need some feedback from the community on exactly what they want to see from us. I mean, we're more than willing to accommodate whatever the community wants us to do. We just would like to see that feedback.
Yeah. You know, Beyond Unreal started out as a hosting website where if people needed web space for their mod or whatever it was, they could get hosting space from Beyond Unreal. And I really look at the channel as kind of the same sort of a thing. This isn't just a platform for the BU staff to disseminate their opinion. It is a resource that we want to provide other people to be able to use if they have good ideas. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to put anything that you guys want on there. There's going to have to be some editing about it. You're going to have to show that it can be a professional product, right?
Yep.
But if you want to get involved, absolutely come and talk to us or comment on our videos and tell us what you think. So,
yeah, I mean, Beyond Unreal is about the community. It always has been. Without the Beyond Unreal community, there's not really a Beyond Unreal. If this show is uninteresting to our community, then I would like to change its format so that we can be accommodating. But we need to get feedback to know if that's not the case or if it is the case or whatever. We accept any comments.
Yep.
Flame me all night.
All right. So let us know what you think, and we'll see you next week.